Casey, part of the many members of Paint All the Minis Greater Network. I'm here today making a video for one of our fellow members, Scott. I'm calling you out. Impatience. His Discord handle really suits him to a T. He's impatient. Keeps pounding me. Hounding me, pestering me, begging for a masterclass video tutorial, some would say, on one of my many methods of painting. So I think I'm going to oblige this one time, this awesome Kromlech squig. Gnashers. I think they're called Gnashers, but it's a pumpkin. You can see. Shouldn't have done that. Not professional here. One bit. There we go. I'm going to be using a contrast on this today. I have primed it with Citadel's Wraithbone primer, rattle can. You can use whatever primer you want. I just happen to have had this rattle can for a while. I've done some Sigmar Oryx, but I do like the warm undertone that it gives. So this is what we're going to do. The first method in my madness of painting contrast is any kind of brown wash. I just happen to have Agrex. What I've used in the past is Army Painter dip. Yeah, strong tone dip. That stuff takes forever to dry, and forever I mean 24 hours. I don't have time for that, so I'm just going to use this. What we're going to do is wash the entire model, top to bottom, bottom side, all of it. When I get done, I'll come back to you and we'll take it from there. All right, there we have it. Even had a little spillage there, or a little runoff, a little excess. That took maybe, I don't know, 2 minutes. Now, what we're going to do, in the ever classic words of the beard clipper, we're going to let that go off. I need to get a t-shirt with that on it. We're going to let that go off. When we come back, we're going to do some dry brushing to bring the brightness back up. Now, I didn't mention beforehand why I'm doing this. That is because contrast on its own just doesn't have enough definition or enough depth. But yeah, the reason I do this particular method, it gives a little bit more warmth to the shadows, to the recesses, and gives contrast just that extra bit of depth that I think it needs, honestly. Because on its own, it just doesn't cut it. Now, if you're doing something larger, like I have a character here, Maniac, on a boar, he's going to take you longer to wash and probably take longer to dry. It's just more area, I guess. I mean, you kind of see him compared to each other here. He's a lot bigger than this guy here. So like I said, we're going to let that go off and come back and dry brush it to a brighter color on top. See you guys later. We're back. Yeah, so next, what I'm going to do is dry brush this with, you can choose any ivory color. I'm choosing ivory because it's kind of a warm white. If you're priming this with gray sear or like a cold gray, you'll want to highlight with something cool instead of warm. So that's what I'm about to do here. Let's see, I'm just going to shoot it on my, what do you Brits call it? Kitchen paper, or paper towels, as we like to say here. I'm lazy, so I just kind of do this, get off what I want. And I want to do this with downward strokes. Downward strokes. We're just hitting the top areas, brightening them back up. And that's going to help the contrast just look different, be more contrasty, if that makes any sense. And this happens to be Army Painter's Masterclass moderate dry brush. You can get any old makeup brush, really. The only one I have is, it's got some really long bristles. Well, makeup brush, that is, that my wife gave me, that she didn't need. I didn't really want to use some long bristled ones for this. This works pretty good. I like these. It came in a 3-pack. I'm just going to do this all over. And next I'm going to jump straight into putting some contrast on, because you don't have to wait for this to dry. You're putting it on not thinned with water, so it dries pretty quick. Now I have a confession. Actually, before I forget, I can't claim to have come up with this method. I do want to stress that. I found out about this from another podcast called 3 Men and a War Game. A gentleman named Chops, that's what he goes by on there, talked about this in their second contrast episode. That he did this with, I think it was some Marvel Crisis Protocol minis, or Infinity minis, one of the two. And I took it, and it worked. I think he used gray sear, or a Vallejo gray primer that's on the cold spectrum, and he did null or a black wash and just highlight it back up with white. Uh, I think he did one extra step, but I'm too lazy, so I like to do it this way. All right, next we're gonna do. This took ages to shake up because on the bottom, well, maybe I can show you. Whoa, this is hard. A lot of the medium will separate on these contrasts and settle on the bottom, and it can take ages to shake up. This one, I'm going to use Ultramarines Blue for the skin. Hasn't been used or touched in about 8, 9, 10 months. So it took a minute. My arm's kind of tired now. Well, we're just going to go. I haven't even opened it yet. That's how new it is. Anyway, get my brush wet. Give it a good lick. And away we go. Now, one thing with contrast is less is more. You don't want to go too heavy. See here. Yeah, you don't want to go too heavy with it, honestly. And if you see that it gets a little heavy, just dry your brush off and absorb the excess. Now, the one downside to contrast is you have to be very careful. Because if this stuff spills over, you're going to have to, it spills over on the stuff you haven't painted yet. Like there's these little boils or sores or whatever you want to call them on them. I don't want to paint those. Those are going to be a different color. But they're so hard to go around that I've already got it over 2 of these right here. But you have to just be as careful as possible when doing this, just to make the paint job go a little faster. If not, you're going to spend a long time cleaning up. I mean a long time. It can be a while if you get a bit too sloppy with it. But I don't like just loading up my brush with this stuff because it can flood a surface and get kind of haywire on you. I'm just going to take it nice and easy. I hope I'm in frame. I'm not even looking. Yeah, I guess I am. Now, the confession I have is I don't have any orange contrast. So I am going to do the pumpkin part orange. So what I'm going to do instead is I have some, where are we? Some Secret Weapon Miniatures orange. It's not as heavily pigmented as contrast, but it is a pretty good glaze that they have. Secret Weapon Miniatures. I really like their stuff. It's good stuff. So I think I'm about to speed this up, get it knocked out, and I'll come back when we go to the next spot. Now for the eye part here, I am going to a smaller brush to just try to help get in there. And as you can see here, you're going to spill stuff over, like on his claw here. I'm going to have to touch that up with some of the wraith bone in a pot. It's inevitable. You're just going to get this stuff everywhere. Then I kind of spilled over here onto this one here. It's just going to happen. So like I said, I'm just getting some paint on my smaller brush here, and I'm just going to, I guess, stipple it in there. Just kind of press it in. And hope that it works. I have to get my head in the shot here, but you kind of get the idea. Hard to reach areas, I do recommend a smaller brush. And another thing I've noticed with contrast is once it starts to dry, excuse me, starts to dry, you'll notice some spots. You may have some white spots. It's like where the paint, just as it dries, just kind of pulls away from an area. You'll have to kind of go back up and touch some spots up. That's normal with contrast. Just expect it. And get used to the going back over when you're done to double check everything. Which is what I'm doing now. Alright, so as I said, next is going to be the Secret Weapon Miniatures Orange. I've already got some in a little paint well over here. This blue I think's had time to dry, and I've also gone ahead and touched up the areas that I've overspilled the blue over to. So we're going to start slapping this on. And again, try to stay away from the sores and whatnot. I'm going to paint those Guillemot blue. Not Guillemot blue. Guillemot flesh. That's what I'm trying to say. Now this stuff, it is more of a wash consistency. So you have to be careful with it because it will start to pool in the lower areas. And if I'm not paying attention, which it might still happen, it can leak down onto this blue stuff over here. And I might have to do 2 applications of this because it's just not as heavily pigmented as contrast. And if we have to, that's fine. Got a lot of another sore there. What I'm thinking about doing is doing this and then using the GW. I forget what it's called, but their orange wash. It's a little bit darker than the Secret Weapon Miniatures orange. We're going to let that go off and then do another round of cleanup. I do recommend checking for spillage or overpainting each time before you go on to the next step. Because you'll be painting along your next contrast paint and you'll realize, oh crap, it's spilled over right there. It's kind of a pain to fix it whilst you're painting at the same time. So we'll let that go off and I'll see you guys in another minute or two. And now up next we're going to do some contrast skeleton horde. Great for anything bony. Bony. Same things before. Just got to get some loaded up. Now this is one of those contrasts that it doesn't take over. Like some do. I really like this one. You can kind of go heavy with it. Sometimes it takes 2 coats of this to really come through. We're going to put this on all his teeth here and his little claws at the bottom there. Okay, next, wildwood. Perfect for any wood, as the name implies. Next is the rest of the caterpillar. I'm going to use orc flesh for that. And then I'm going to paint the base, put some sand on it to make it match all my other ones, and he's done. Alright guys, and we're back. I'm going to have to make this kind of quick. It's later in the evening. Family's here. There's a bunch of noise going on. Things happening. But this is it. This is kind of what you end up with. Went ahead and did my sand texture. Did the black on the rim. Did the varnish already. Let's see if I can bring them up here. There we go. That's better. Lock in the focus. Alright. So yeah, this took less than an hour. Most of the time is going to be spent drying. Actually, you're gonna find yourself just waiting for crap to dry. Pretty happy, pretty pleased with how it came out. Now on camera here, the orange actually looks a lot better than what it does in person. In person, it's a bit more white. I probably should have done a second coat. But yeah, that's contrast for you, Scott. I hope you learned a lot. I now expect you to do the same. I want you to replicate this. Do your whatever it is you wanted to do this on. Your orcs. I think you had some orcs. Yeah, man. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And I'll catch y'all later. I think I just figured out how to set my focus. You have to hold down on the screen on what you press. Now there's a lock icon. Nobody cares to know that, but I wanted you to know. Shameless plug here. Get you one of these mugs if you want to be cool. And I'm not one to toot my own horn, but you know, I might be a pro level painter. God, that's hot. Hey, look, there's a mold line right there. See that? Just wanted y'all to see that too.